I just have to start. I can't believe how full of love this room is, and I thank you all so much for being here. I am Jenny, Al and Eileen's middle daughter, and on behalf of my father, my sisters Joelle and Jillian, and our families, we thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate the life of an incredible woman. Perhaps Dexy's Midnight Runners sum the past 4 months up best. Come on, Eileen. Come on, Eileen. Oh, I swear at this moment you mean everything. That was the theme as my mom struggled to recover at the Cleveland Clinic, St. Mary's, and finally at the Hospice of Western Reserve. I have to take a moment to thank the doctors and nurses along the way, especially to Dr. Mike Harrington, the nurses and aides on H50, and the incredible people we encountered the past 2 weeks at the Ames House. We are forever grateful. Eileen showed bravery, resilience, and strength just as she did her entire life. She handled her illness with grace and dignity, and she never complained. She refused to let her illness define her, choosing instead to embrace life and the things she loved. Born the middle daughter of Joseph and Josephine, her sisters describe her as beautiful, outgoing, and devoted she was. As a child, my sisters and I witnessed her love and devotion to her parents every day. She was a loyal daughter, to say the least. Every Sunday, my grandparents would come for a beautiful, delicious sit-down dinner, and every Sunday at the table, my grandfather would shout, "I wonder what the poor people are eating." My mother was the world to him, and they had a very special bond. He was very proud and very protective of her. I often wonder what my mother was like as a teenager and in her 20s. I know she was stunningly beautiful and had a radiant smile, and I know my father thought so. He spotted her at a bar and was captivated immediately. The problem was, she was on a date. Thankfully, that did not stop him. He waited until she was alone, approached her and said, "You belong with me." And her response was, "Definitely." My mother told me they started dating very soon after, and they fell madly in love. My father went to see Jo for her hand in marriage, and my grandfather said they would have to wait until my mother finished nursing school. I am happy to report their love could not wait. My mother was 7 months pregnant with Joelle at her graduation, and they had been married for a year. I followed 11 months later, and Jill 2 years after that. My parents just recently celebrated in July their 55th wedding anniversary. They knew exactly what they were doing. My parents' love for each other is truly incredible. I have never seen a man care so deeply for a woman. My mom was and is his whole world. Dad, the way you have stood by her side, protected her, and cared for her has been a gift to witness. Your love for each other will live on every day in your children and grandchildren. Olivia, Eleanor, Arden, and Eliza, find your papa. Jack, Landon, Tripp, Gordon, and Clem, love as fiercely as your papa. My mother devoted herself as a nurse and spent most of her career at Metro Health Hospital. She loved that place and everything it stood for. She worked in the ER, intensive care, surgery, peds, labor and delivery, and ended her career as director of infectious disease. She was the bug lady. We joked people were terrified of her. She was the queen of hand washing, and she took her job very seriously. She was an incredible nurse, and she cared deeply for her patients. Metro Health was lucky to have her, and they knew it. My mother had a way of inserting herself into situations that changed the outcome, and I mean for the better. Her calmness, cool head, and quick reaction literally saved lives. In one case, she brought a life into this world. I will never forget getting a phone call when I was in grade school from her dear friend who was at home in labor with her 6th child. That woman is sitting right there. We rushed to the house and my mom delivered Nicholas into the world. Nicholas did not want to wait for the paramedics. My mom was there for people when they needed her most. She stepped up. She took charge. She was the person you wanted on your team. When my daughter Eleanor was 9 years old, she was diagnosed with a major heart defect. It was my mother we turned to for reassurance, strength, and guidance. Tom and I were terrified. She carried us through. When my mother's parents' best friend Vicky was dying from cancer, my mother stepped in. She carried them through. I could go on and on. She had a way of taking charge and quickly turning everything okay. Probably the most rewarding work my mother did was her volunteering at Malachi House. Every week for years, she and her buddy Jake would walk through the doors and make it a brighter place. She was comforting and compassionate and truly loved her time there. She was recognized as Volunteer of the Year in 2012. She was a gift to Malachi House, but it really was a gift to her. I recently came across something my mother jotted down in a notebook. It said, "Sometimes the strongest among us are the ones who smile through the pain, cry behind closed doors, and fight battles nobody knows." It resonated with me and reminded me of my mother's journey. You see, my mother lived 77 years because time and time again, she was healed by the grace of God. She fought hard and she had an incredible will to live. God said, "Be not afraid, only believe," and she did. She trusted God and the many doctors and nurses who cared for her along the way, and she was rewarded for her faith. She was blessed with the greatest gifts of all. She got to see her daughters go off and start lives of their own with their beautiful families, and she got to meet all of her grandchildren. Nothing brought my parents more joy in their lives than the birth of each grandchild. My dad once told me, "We had you girls to get the grandkids." And he wasn't kidding. Believe me when I tell you, the day Jack Gerlach was born was the happiest day of her life. And the joy continued with the birth of each and every one. Jack, Olivia, Arden, who followed in Lenie's footsteps to become a nurse, Eleanor, who carries her name, Landon, Eliza, Tripp, Gordon, and Clem, cherish your memories of the greatest grandmother ever and live your lives knowing she is always watching over you. You are her legacy. Be kind, take charge, speak up, help others, care for those in need, love hard, remember the password, and live your greatest lives. You were her whole life. Continue to make her proud. Mothers bring us into the world, and it's hard to imagine a life without them. They are with you when you take your first breath, and we are lucky enough to be there when she took her last. I was privileged to be by her side for most of the past 4 months. It was a gift. I am honored to be her daughter, and I know Joelle and Jill feel the same. I read this often in the hospital through the helpless days and nights at the clinic this summer. "And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain. For the former things are passed away." Mom, we promise as your family to keep your legacy and forever make you proud. Your memory will forever serve as a reminder to cherish our health, embrace each day, and to support and uplift each other. Leenie, we love you, and you are forever in our hearts.
Beautiful. Beautiful.